Welcome to another episode of Kauffman Writes. Monday, today is day 64. We're going to be getting some writing sprints done. And because I literally just got to my studio, we'll talk about whatever you want to chat about. Welcome to Kauffman Writes. I'm Kauffman, and this is my daily creative writing live stream. What's up, Atomic Elf in the house? Welcome, welcome. We are here in the stream and we are live. Let's see. I literally just got back to my studio and managed to set everything up in 5 minutes. It was a doozy. But on my drive back, incredible ideas for my story. You know, when you're driving and you're just your mind's kind of just wandering sometimes, and then you start thinking of your story, and I'm like, yeah, that's actually a good idea. That's how I want to plot that. It was just further reinforcing the plot that I'm working on. I was like, yeah, that's great. I was like, wow, I came up with some really good ideas for things that are coming up. So with that being said, we get to hop straight into a writing sprint because I'm excited to work on this next portion. All right, so let me pull up my banner. And let's see, we're going to throw in some music. What do we feel like? We're going to get before the bell. Now, if you're here joining me in the live stream today, like usual, you can feel free to write with me if you need to get some writing done, or you can read along and I'll write vicariously for the both of us. Okay, here we go. Perfect. And last Scarecrow. So with where I left them off last time, once again, Scarecrow separated from his friends. Surprise, surprise. And he is meeting some interesting characters, but he heard of a rabbit creature also trapped in this pit alongside them. Is this the rabbit that he's been thinking of? Let's say I sent you a message on Facebook, including some inspirational sprint music. Oh, that's super awesome. Thank you. I was like, I have not even checked Facebook since I had to rush back home. I know. Let's see what you got. Social media, Facebook. Let's see. That is so awesome. Atomic, thank you for sending that over. What I'll do is I'll check it out. I'm actually been looking for more quality music that I need, so that way I stop using the same 2 songs. So thank you for that. That's actually something that I really need this week. I'll check it out on I'll try it out for one of my future live streams. But that is so cool. Thank you so much. And that's awesome, right? I'm the thing I need to work on this week is music, and music shows up. Thank you so much, Atomic. That's exactly where my mind was at. All right, so let's see. Let's pull up our writing sprint. And where was I? All right, I need to get myself back into the writing mindset for a second. So Scarecrow was, let's see, he was stuck in the pit with these animals. He's met two characters. For some reason, they started giving me Timon and Pumbaa vibes. We got Gore the bear and Stretch the snake. I was like, all right. I was like, I'm just gonna run with these names for now. Let's see. He is a rabbit. R-A-B. I know what a rabbit looks like, but that's not a rabbit. Between that color-changing belly of his and that weird necklace, the last Scarecrow stood up and interrupted. Wait, you've seen you've seen a rabbit creature? with an oval necklace. Like making an oval necklace. Both Gore and Stretch nodded their heads towards the opposite end of the pit, which was hard to make out anything due to the shadows of the cave. The last Scarecrow had to know. Could it be possible? He set the apple down and took a couple steps away from them. Thank you again, but I have to speak with this rabbit creature. I have to know. Thank you again, but I have to speak with this rabbit creature. If it's the one we've been searching for, the one I've been searching for. Gore grabbed his arm with one paw. I wouldn't if I were you. The last animal who spoke with them lost its head, Stretch hissed. The last Scarecrow nodded and gulped, knowing full well that he didn't have a choice. From the sounds of it, they were tossed into this pit for a reason, and he had to know the truth before their captors returned. He looked back at the duo and whispered, "Thank you for your kindness, but I have to know." He walked away but stopped. I'm Scarecrow, by the way. The two of them rolled onto the ground, laughing hysterically. Once again. He didn't get what was so funny. He shrugged and left them to their jokes as he turned towards the opposite end of the pit and expected the worst. Alright, so this brings us to chapter 21. I have to bring up my outline. I just want to make sure. Awesome. So 20 is essentially the pit. Which means chapter 21 will be... That's what we're going to do. All right. And right now, it's time to write now. The timer starts. I think that was a good stopping point. I lost track of time today with my current writing sprint that I was in. All right, so let's pull up the break. All right, and 10-minute break. So I was definitely making good progress. Where I'll be taking we'll do a 10-minute break and then we'll hop into a second writing sprint. If you were writing along with me, or if you've been getting some writing done lately, how's your writing coming along? What's the story you're working on? I would love to hear it. It's kind of interesting as I've been developing these characters. I always wanted this rabbit character to come back. I introduced him, I want to say it must have been around page 30, 35. I introduced him as a scared rabbit hybrid ish, like humanish looking creature way, way back. And I think when I originally put him into this story, I was using him as a bit of a plot device to create a warning for the scarecrow before he went into this like dangerous city. And as I got past it, I realized I wanted him to return, and I definitely wanted him to come back. And I've really been thinking about how I wanted him to return, and I knew this was the moment. So like, I've been having fun with these characters. Let's see. I'm working on my story beats. Dude, that's good. That's really good. It's really good to plan out. I'm curious. Do you have any like special methods when you're plotting out your story? When I'm working on a new story myself, and if I'm outlining it. So let's say that I'm jumping into it and I'm not just doing a full-on outline. I Let's see. I always like to start with having a beginning, middle, and an end. When I plot out like the story beats, I work from a larger perspective and then get smaller. So like, and this for some like this always makes sense to me. Now, of course, it's going to be different if I do something that's not a 3-act structure, but a lot of my storytelling tends to revolve around a 3-act structure. I When I'm thinking of the story, I always think of either ideas, characters, or the world first. And then I start with what's the beginning of the story going to look like, and then what's the end of the story going to look like. Because everything else in between is all the fun stuff and all the storytelling that gets to happen for whatever hero I have get from the beginning to the end. And then once I have the beginning and the end, then I plot out what I want the middle point to be, which essentially the middle is really halfway between where the hero starts and where the hero ends. Now, depending on the story, sometimes that middle point gets to be like a high where the hero, it's going to be like a humongous victory, or sometimes it's going to be a low. And it's going to be like one of like the worst, not the worst moment in the story, but one of the worst moments in the story. And I think it really depends on how my characters progress in the first half of the script or the story, the novel, short story. And that determines how I get to plot out the different beats for the characters. Once I have the beginning, middle, and end point, then if I want to keep going, or sometimes I'll just start working on it. If I want to keep going, then I'll ask myself like, all right, what's the middle point between the beginning and the middle, and then the middle and the end? And you see, I kind of work this way in a very structural, systematic approach. And then I'll generally get myself to about anywhere between 5 to 15 story beats that now lays out my entire story. And sometimes, let's see, yeah, sometimes I feel like this method generally works very, very well for me because I like to have like an idea, but sometimes I'll be writing and like, let me know if this ever happens to you, where like maybe you have a really great outline for a story, but then you're like writing and you think of something better. Or you're like, this part of this outline is garbage. I just thought of a cooler idea. That happens sometimes. I think the rough draft is the most fun part of the creative writing process, right? And I'm always like, just go for it, enjoy it, live in the fun, live in the story. That's what storytelling is about. And it works out great if if you go through your outline and you get to hit every beat. And if you don't, like, it's all good. You can always go back and revise the outline when you're working on the second draft. Let's see, Atomic. I'm using the Save the Cat beats, but I'm planning a sci-fi trilogy. The idea for this story started with a what if statement several years ago and sat until recently when it came to mind. That's awesome. I am such a fan of Save the Cat. I was like, I'm actually surprised. I don't know where my copy of Save the Cat went. I actually think I gave it to somebody. I definitely I love the Save the Cat method. I I think when I originally learned the structure for Save the Cat, I sometimes it can feel like it's a lot of story beats, but I think there's like it's probably like 5 to 7 very like popular storytelling structures out there. And I know Save the Cat is one of them. I think Save the Cat is really, really strong if you're not, for somebody out there, I'm not saying you are, but for people out there when they're still understanding like storytelling and hitting the beats and trying to get like, okay, they have to hit this beat. They have to hit the end of Act One beat. They have to hit the Dark Night of the Soul beat. And I think that's yeah, I mean, I think it's really I think the Save the Cat method's pretty good though. I think I would definitely teach that. I think if I were to develop my own system, I would probably like shorten it and make the beats a little simpler. So I think if I recall, the Save the Cat method has 15 beats. If I recall, it's been a little while since I've studied it, but I used it a lot, especially when I was screenwriting. Idea for the story started with a what if statement several years ago and sat until recently when it came to mind. Yeah, that's really cool. It's actually the coolest thing when you've been ruminating on an idea for a very long time, and then you're like, all right, now's kind of the time, and you kind of just like feel it. You feel it in like your creative like mind. You're like, all right, let's bring it to life. Let's make it a cool story. That's awesome. I love sci-fi. Usually, it's obviously clearly Last Scarecrow is epic fantasy. Well, actually, not epic. I mean, maybe later on, but no, right now it's more of a hero's journey, not epic. I would just say it's still trying to determine what it is. It's like a post-apocalyptic fairy tale, kind of fantasy-ish. A lot of fantasy elements. Let's see. Your method sounds similar to the Dan Wells method. What's the Dan Wells method? I'm not super familiar with that. Let's see, I'm gonna Google that. Dan Wells method. The 7 point story structure is a plotting method introduced by novelist Dan Wells that focuses on 7 beats of a story, 7 key beats of a story. The literal structure offered is more simple than some others, such as Save the Cat or the Hero's Journey, but nevertheless just as effective. Here, I'll pull it up so you guys can see what I'm looking at. I was honestly just kind of curious. Hook, plot 1, pinch point 1, midpoint, pinch point 2, plot turn 2, resolution. Yeah, okay, I could actually totally say that because I end up using less beats than Save the Cat. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like I I wouldn't say that I'm extremely familiar with all of like the popular methods out there, and I'm familiar with a couple ones, but I think to me it comes down to is the moment in the story that I'm trying to tell, does it match the emotional arc for whatever the overall character's journey is? And I think I always start with the structure of like, all right, there's beats, but then as the story progresses, like if the midpoint doesn't happen till later or earlier, like that's fine. Because I think stories themselves have their own structure that they want to tell you. In all honesty, that definitely happens to me a lot. Definitely happens to me a lot. And I think there's definitely a lot of good methods out there, especially when working on your story. And I think it's really good to like see different methods, especially if you're the type of writer out there who you're trying to like figure out what your method of writing is, or maybe if you're a new writer and you're still trying to be like, all right, do I use hero's journey, 3 act? I know there's a newer one. There's the Rick and Morty creator. You know, he came up with a story structure. Let's see. The plot development focuses first on the hook and resolution. then moves to the plot turns, followed by the pitch point and the midpoint. That makes sense. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. But which is absolutely it's funny. I've actually never heard of that method before. But I think it's a great strategy for writers or for new writers when especially they're struggling with like trying to develop stories because like the strongest moments in your stories, or at least for your character anyway, is going to be the beginning moment and the end moment. Because this is the beginning is when the character is stuck in their old world, and the end is when the character's completely changed. And I think once you have that clear, it makes it easier to figure out what type of journey you want in between, because all the stuff in between is all the writer's creativity on how do you bring the different things to life. And that's actually pretty cool. I feel like I'm going to have to research his method a little bit more. Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. And that's going to bring me back to, let's see, writing sprint number 2. Let's get some more writing in. I am having fun with this part that I'm on. All right, I'm going to reset the timer. And writing sprint number 2. Let me throw up the music. All right. Oh, and once again, if you're just joining us on the live stream or you're here on the replay, I'm doing my second writing sprint, 20 minutes. Feel free to join along if you're trying to get some writing done, or if you've had a long day, you can always kick back and relax, and you can read along with me. I'll write vicariously for all of us. All right, and let's see. All right, music up. Yeah, Atomic. I'm definitely going to have to try out your music. I'll definitely try out your music. I've like definitely been needing your music, by the way. I'm so glad that you shared that. All right, 20 minutes on the clock. And it's time to write now. right. Oh, another really good writing sprint on my part. I know I was writing yesterday. Jessica, I don't know if you're out there. You were saying it was like, it's not a writing sprint. That was like a longer marathon. It's kind of funny as I get farther into the story and more of it is coming together. I just like have to finish these chapters and keep going because I'm so thrilled to be able to just keep telling the story of the last scarecrow, continue developing it, and getting to the end actually, and seeing how the climax comes together. But we are currently on our way to the midpoint right now, so we'll get to see how our characters shape up. That there was a good amount of things that happened in that chapter. I'm actually really glad at how this section came out. I knew that there was going to be some sort of imprisonment again, and I kind of went back and forth because now that was the second, almost actually the third time they were imprisoned. But I think it actually feels right because it's going to be a huge opposite antithesis from what they're going to deal with on the back end of the story. And these characters that are starting to come to life a little bit between the rabbit creature and now we have Gore and Stretch, I think is actually a really nice juxtaposition between the different personality types for this next little section of the Scarecrow's journey. I went back and forth on how I wanted to deal with Pebble and Crow, on whether or not I wanted them to just reappear in a little bit, or whether to actually follow their perspectives and hop away from the Scarecrow. And I think I want to hop into Pebble's point of view because I think the impact that she is going to have on the overall story is actually going to be pretty big as I'm continuing to develop this. Same along with the crows as well. So we'll get to see what how the story unfolds next as we get to learn more about the rabbit. The the rabbit who's like literally seems kind of like evil, but clearly he was hurt. The Gore and the snake, Gore and Stretch, and then the arena. So this will be fun. All right. I hope you were able to get some writing done as well, or some planning and plotting out there. It sounds like is always exciting. So let's see if you found any value in today's stream show, and whether or not it was from the writing sprints or from some of the conversation. No, we didn't talk quite as much today. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to the stream. I'm here streaming every day. I will be hard at work developing the last scarecrow and getting to the rough draft. I'm having too much fun putting this together. So join me. I'll be here. I'm keeping my same schedule that I did last week. I'll be here. Let's see, writing on the morrow. Let me pull up my schedule. So I'll be up with the same schedule for this week. I wanted to try to one more week, see how I today. Don't forget on your way out, hit the like button. Let me know that you enjoyed this and found value from it. And Atomic, if you're there, I'll message you in a little bit. I actually wanted to check out that music of yours. Thanks again. All right, friends. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you on the morrow.